Hey guys, tonight we're dimming the lights, turning down the world, and drifting back into a time where eyeliner was thicker than loyalty. Milk baths were considered skincare, and family reunions doubled as wedding registries. Yes, we're talking about Cleopatra Queen, goddess, political mastermind, and part-time drama influencer of the ancient world. So, settle in. Maybe grab a blanket. Maybe let the hum of your fan mix with the desert breeze in your imagination. Because this is going to be a long one, an hour of Cleopatra's life. Her chaos, her lovers, her pearls, her donkeys, and a few bonus crazy royal facts sprinkled in. Let's get cozy in the ancient world together. Cleopatra was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty. A family tree, less tree and more tangled ball of yarn. Imagine if your dating pool was just the sibling section of the family photo. That was the Ptolemies. Marrying your sister wasn't scandal, it was basically encouraged, like an awkward family coupon. Her father, Ptolemy II, nicknamed Auletes, or the flute player. Historians argue whether that meant he played an actual flute badly or just played his role as king badly. Either way, he wasn't winning Father of the Year. By the time he died, the throne was left in the hands of Cleopatra and her younger brother husband, Ptolemy III. He was about 10 years old. She was in her late teens. You know, a classic romance. Of course, this royal co-op went south fast. The regents thought Cleopatra was too independent, so they politely suggested she get lost. And by politely suggested, I mean they yeeted her straight out into exile in the desert. But Cleopatra wasn't a sulker. She was a schemer. Which brings us to forget surprise parties. Cleopatra invented the dramatic reveal. When she wanted back into power, she didn't send a letter or knock on the palace door. No, she had herself rolled up in a carpet, smuggled into Caesar's quarters, and then dramatically unrolled at his feet like some kind of human housewarming gift. Julius Caesar, who was probably expecting wine or bread, suddenly had a fully perfumed queen tumble out in front of him. And just like that, Cleopatra turned political exile into history's most iconic grand entrance. Caesar wasn't just intrigued, he was hooked. Cleopatra had charm, wit, and Egypt's entire grain supply to back her up. They struck up a partnership that was half romance, half business merger. They took a Nile cruise, the kind that made Roman senators clutch their pearls. And yes, they had a child together, Caesarion, also known as Little Caesar. No pizza involved, though plenty of scandal. Back in Rome, Caesar was still married, so parading a child with Cleopatra didn't exactly win him most loyal husband. But Cleopatra knew exactly what she was doing, tying herself to the most powerful man in the world. If Cleopatra had LinkedIn, her skills section would read like Google Translate. She reportedly spoke at least 9 languages: Egyptian, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, Parthian, and more. While other monarchs needed translators, Cleopatra was the translator. This wasn't just showing off. It was strategy. She could talk directly to priests, merchants, soldiers, and diplomats. She could flatter you in your own tongue and then insult you fluently in another one. Imagine negotiating with her, you'd be signing treaties before you realized she just called your toga unfashionable in median. Cleopatra wasn't just about politics. She weaponized beauty like an art form. Forget jade rollers and sheet masks. Cleopatra bathed in donkey milk. She supposedly kept hundreds of donkeys just to maintain her skincare routine. Imagine being one of those donkeys. Your entire resume. produced milk for Queen's bath. She used crushed beetles for lipstick, gold masks for facials, and coal eyeliner that doubled as lead poisoning in a tube. Her look wasn't vanity. It was propaganda. Every smoky eye said, "I'm not just your queen, I'm a goddess. Also, please admire my brows." And let's not forget the pearl incident. Legend has it she bet Mark Antony she could host the most expensive dinner in history. Then she casually dropped one of her priceless pearl earrings into vinegar, dissolved it, and drank it. With eye contact. If that isn't queen-level pettiness, nothing is. After Caesar's very stabby exit in Rome, Cleopatra needed a new Roman ally. Enter Mark Antony. He was a soldier, a party boy, and a man very susceptible to dramatic entrances. So Cleopatra didn't just walk into his life, she sailed. She met him in Tarsus on a golden barge with purple sails, silver oars, and perfume so thick you could smell her arrival miles away. She dressed as the goddess Isis, lounged under a canopy, and turned the whole river into a stage. Antony, standing on the dock, probably realized he'd just been outproduced by a floating perfume ad. And he loved it. The two became inseparable. They drank, they schemed, they had children, and they founded what was basically history's first luxury couple brand. Meanwhile, in Rome, senators were losing their minds. Antony was already married to Octavian's sister, so this wasn't just a romance. It was an international scandal with eyeliner. Cleopatra and Antony loved a good party. They even started their own society, the Inimitable Livers, which sounds like a medical condition but was actually a drinking club where members dressed up, feasted, and pulled outrageous stunts. Cleopatra once proved she could spend 10 million sesterces on a single dinner. That's where the pearl stunt came in. Antony? He just tried to keep up, probably realizing halfway through that he'd fallen in love with a woman who could literally outdrink his empire. Of course, Rome didn't find their antics charming. Octavian painted Cleopatra as a manipulative seductress enslaving poor Antony. Because obviously Roman men could never make bad choices on their own. The final showdown came at the Battle of Actium, where Antony and Cleopatra's forces were crushed. Back in Egypt, with Octavian closing in, Antony fell on his sword, and Cleopatra followed with the famous snake bite. Or maybe poison, or maybe just a very dramatic rumor. Either way, their love story ended in tragedy, and Octavian marched into history as Augustus, first emperor of Rome. Cleopatra has been remembered as a seductress, a goddess, a beauty icon, and a political genius. The truth, she was all of those and more. She turned language, religion, beauty, and even pearls into tools of power. She bent Rome to her will, if only for a while, and made herself unforgettable for over 2,000 years. But Cleopatra wasn't the only one with flair. Ancient royals everywhere were doing weird things. Caligula, Roman emperor, allegedly tried to make his horse a senator. Because why not? Nero supposedly fiddled while Rome burned. More likely, he just sang badly while people panicked. King Xerxes of Persia once ordered the sea whipped with chains after it sank his fleet. Yes, he tried to punish water. Elagabalus, another Roman emperor, threw parties where guests were buried under rose petals, which sounds romantic until you realize people literally suffocated. Compared to them, Cleopatra's donkey milk baths almost seem reasonable. And so, as we close the scroll on Cleopatra's life, remember this. History's most powerful figures weren't always the bravest warriors or the strongest rulers. Sometimes they were queens with eyeliner sharp enough to cut through empires, a sense of drama that could outshine Broadway, and enough charisma to make Rome itself nervous. Now, take a breath. Let the Nile drift past in your imagination. The gold fades, the sails go slack. Cleopatra's barge glides into the horizon, and with it, the noise of the ancient world. Good night, and may your dreams be free of pearls, donkeys, and political scandals.